How can a simple adventure take a terrifying turn? Descending into a pitch-black cave surrounded by jagged rocks and narrow passages where every step could lead to danger. What would you do if the unexpected happened? A misstep, a fall, a cry for help echoing through the darkness. This is the story of one such journey where excitement turned to fear in an instant. A routine descent down a cable ladder became a life-threatening ordeal for one experienced caver. What caused the sudden fall? How did the team navigate the treacherous rescue deep underground? Stay with us as we unravel the mystery of what really happened in the depths of Clover Hollow Cave. Welcome to Clover Hollow Natural Area Preserve, located in the beautiful Giles County, Virginia. While it may look like a simple 25-acre field gradually turning back into forest, this area hides an incredible secret underground. Beneath the surface lies Stay High Cave, a fascinating and fragile ecosystem home to some of the world's rarest cave-dwelling species. This cave is a treasure trove of life. It shelters 7 rare invertebrate species, 3 of which are found only in this region of the Sinking Creek Valley. Alongside these rare creatures, more familiar cave inhabitants like salamanders, crickets, spiders, harvestmen, crayfish, and bats also thrive here. The cave's diverse habitats include underground streams, mud banks, drip pools, and organic communities that depend on the surrounding forested slopes for their water and nutrients. The significance of Stay High Cave was discovered in 1994 by speleologist Dave Hubbard, who conducted a biological inventory in response to concerns over a proposed power line project. It quickly became clear that this cave needed protection, not just from the power line, but also from the growing threat of residential development. Thanks to the efforts of the Cave Conservancy of the Virginias and the Virginia Natural Heritage Program, the state acquired the preserve in 2005 to safeguard its unique ecosystem. Today, Clover Hollow Natural Area Preserve is closed to the general public in order to protect the delicate species and habitats inside Stay High Cave. Access is limited to scientific research and monitoring activities, ensuring that this underground wonder remains undisturbed. Caving, also known as splunking, is an exciting activity that allows people to explore the hidden world beneath the Earth's surface. Unlike hiking or other outdoor adventures, caving takes you into a mysterious and challenging environment filled with winding tunnels, stunning formations, and the thrill of discovery. Exploring caves is not just about adventure, though. It requires preparation and respect for nature. Beginners typically start with experienced guides who know the cave's layout, including the safe routes to follow and areas to avoid. These guides may use maps created by local cavers, also known as grotto members, who dedicate time to studying and preserving caves. Caving can be dangerous if not done properly. Rainstorms even miles away can flood underground streams, trapping cavers or cutting off exits. Tight passages and slippery mud make navigation challenging, while vertical shafts often require specialized equipment like ropes. Sadly, accidents can and do happen. In 2024, a caver in Giles County fell 100 feet to their death, highlighting the importance of safety in caving. One key rule of caving is to be prepared. Reliable equipment, such as backup lights and sturdy gear, is essential. Cavers also have a strong responsibility to protect the caves they explore. Delicate rock formations and fragile ecosystems can be easily damaged, and many caves house rare or endangered species that depend on these environments to survive. Some caves are gated to protect them, and cavers must respect these barriers and the rules set by landowners. In the caving community, the term splunker is often used to describe someone who enters caves without proper preparation or respect for safety. A common saying among cavers is, "Cavers rescue splunkers," reflecting the risks taken by those who underestimate the challenges of cave exploration. Cave rescues are incredibly difficult. The tight spaces, the steep drops, and the wet conditions make it hard to assist an injured person or carry them to safety. That's why it's so important to cave responsibly and never underestimate the underground world. Whether you're here to learn about the wonders of Clover Hollow Cave, or just curious about the adventures of caving, remember, that these underground environments are as beautiful as they are fragile. Respect for safety and nature is key to enjoying and preserving these amazing places for generations to come. In 1981, on the chilly morning of Saturday, December 12th, 4 members of the Virginia Tech Grotto, a group of experienced cavers, embarked on an adventure into Clover Hollow Cave in Giles County, Virginia. The group was eager to explore the depths of this remarkable cave, known for its intricate passages and unique geological formations. Armed with ropes, harnesses, helmets, and headlamps, the team had carefully prepared for this trip, knowing the challenges that lay ahead. It was a cold, clear day, and there was a light layer of snow on the ground outside the cave. Inside the cave, it was very different. As the people exploring the cave went down into the underground world, they felt the damp, cool air that is normal in caves. The temperature stayed about the same year-round, about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The cave walls were shiny with water, and they could hear water dripping everywhere. Even though it was hard to move through the narrow, dark tunnels, the group was very excited and looking forward to exploring. The exploration started without any problems, and the team was full of energy and excitement. They moved carefully through the dark, twisting passages of the cave, navigating 2 big drops. The first was a massive 65-foot vertical descent, where they relied on ropes and harnesses to lower themselves down into the darkness. The second was a 17-foot drop, smaller but still challenging. Every step of the way, they used their skills and teamwork to make it through the rough terrain. Their goal was clear: to reach a deeper section of the cave known for its incredible rock formations and breathtaking underground scenery. As they moved towards a tricky 12-foot drop inside a narrow, chimney-like passage, the group was still in good spirits, laughing and encouraging each other. At this spot, a cable ladder had been permanently set up to help cavers descend safely, especially during storms when water could rush through the cave, turning it into a dangerous trap. The team knew that this could be a risky point, but they were confident. They had prepared for this trip, and they trusted their abilities. 2 of the cavers decided to take a daring approach and skip the ladder altogether. Instead, they climbed down using their hands and feet to grip the rough walls of the narrow passage. The others watched as the pair skillfully made their way down, their headlamps casting eerie shadows on the cave walls. They reached the bottom without any trouble, and they called up to the rest of the team, shouting, "It's clear! You can come down!" At 9:45 a.m., Lee Little, one of the most experienced members of the group, prepared to make his descent. Unlike the others, he decided to use the cable ladder for extra safety. With years of caving experience behind him, Lee was confident in his ability to navigate this part of the cave. The group watched as he carefully stepped onto the ladder, gripping its metal rungs tightly. Lee began climbing down the cable ladder slowly and carefully. His hands gripped the metal rungs tightly, and his movements were steady as he stepped onto the sloping ledge near the top. The team watched from below, their headlamps casting flickering beams of light on the cave walls. Everything seemed fine. Until it wasn't. Suddenly, something went wrong. One of Lee's hands slipped and got stuck under a rung. In a moment of panic, he yanked his hand free, but the sudden motion threw him off balance. Before anyone could react, Lee lost his footing and pitched backwards into the darkness. The others watched in horror as Lee fell 10 feet through the narrow shaft, his body twisting helplessly in midair. The fall ended with his painful scream as he hit the rocky cave floor below. Lee landed hard, curled up on his side, groaning in pain. "Lee, are you okay?" someone shouted, their voice echoing through the cave. The team rushed to his side, their hearts racing with fear. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as they crouched around him, waiting for any sign of movement. All of them began to relax a little when Lee opened his eyes and tried to talk, but his face showed that he was in a lot of pain. He held his side near his right hip and ribs, making a face as he tried to sit up. "I'm okay," he mumbled, but it was obvious he wasn't. Lee said the pain was sharp, and like it was shooting through his body, making it almost impossible to move. The others quickly looked for any injuries that they could see, but there was no blood. However, his pain and the trouble he had lifting his right leg worried them a lot. They were afraid that he might have hurt his kidney or his spine, and the idea of trying to get him out of the cave in that condition was very scary. Now, even though he was in a lot of pain, Lee tried to stay calm and tell the group that everything was all right. But his pale face and the way that he was breathing heavily showed that he was really hurting. The happy mood the group had before was gone, and now they felt a growing sense of worry and fear. They knew that they had to act quickly to get Lee out of the cave safely, but they knew that it would be very difficult and would really test their strength, their skills, and how determined they were. The cavers examined Lee as best as they could in the dim light of their headlamps. His injuries appeared to be localized to a severe bruise between his right hip and rib cage, but his pain and difficulty lifting his right leg were concerning. Climbing back up the cable ladder proved agonizing for Lee, and it became clear that continuing the exploration was out of the question. The team decided that an evacuation was the safest course of action. One member of the group volunteered to leave the cave and call for help. At 10:30 a.m., they contacted the Grotto rescue team, requesting 12 additional cavers and a Stokes litter to facilitate the evacuation. By 12:30 p.m., reinforcements had arrived at the cave entrance, bringing with them the necessary equipment for a complex vertical rescue. The rescue team quickly assessed the situation and began setting up a series of pulleys and ropes to haul Lee up the vertical drops. The first challenge was the 17-foot drop. The rescue team used a combination of strength and mechanical advantage to lift the Stokes litter, which securely held Lee. The operation was slow and methodical, with each movement carefully coordinated to ensure his safety. The next obstacle was the 65-foot vertical shaft. This was the most challenging part of the evacuation, requiring the team to rig an intricate pulley system to lift the litter steadily and without sudden movements. Lee remained calm throughout, though his pain was evident in the grimaces that occasionally crossed his face. Halfway out of the cave, the team encountered a narrow crawl space that posed a new challenge. The Stokes litter was too large to fit through the low passage. Lee, despite his injury, demonstrated incredible determination by crawling through the tight space while the rescue team carefully passed the litter through a high, narrow slot above. The last section of the rescue involved maneuvering through slippery, uneven terrain near the cave entrance. By 3 p.m., after hours of careful effort, Lee was finally brought to the surface. The cold air outside was a stark contrast to the humid conditions inside the cave, but it was a welcome relief to the exhausted team. Lee was immediately transported to a nearby hospital for evaluation. Fortunately, X-rays and medical tests revealed no fractures or internal injuries. His diagnosis was limited to a severe bruise, though the pain and trauma of the experience would undoubtedly linger for some time. In reflecting on the events of that day, it's clear that the lack of a belay for Lee's descent played a key role in what happened. It's also important to note that the free climbers, who chose not to use the ladder, were also without a belay. However, this doesn't excuse the situation. Whether free climbing or using a ladder, there are basic safety principles that must always be followed. When climbing, it is essential to maintain 3 points of contact at all times. This means keeping 2 hands and 1 foot, or 2 feet and 1 hand, securely in place before moving the next hand or foot. By doing so, the risk of losing balance or slipping is significantly reduced. In Lee's case, moving his hand before ensuring that his other hand was secure contributed to his fall. There is also a larger point to consider about the nature of climbing without a belay. Free climbing without a belay may be acceptable in some situations where a fall can be controlled. For example, if a climber can anticipate the fall and land on their feet and then tuck and roll, the chances of avoiding serious injury are higher. However, in situations like ladder climbing, where falls are more likely to result in an uncontrolled landing on one's back or side, should always be treated with extra caution. In such cases, using a belay is not just recommended, it is essential. The lessons from this experience are clear. Caving is an incredible adventure, offering the chance to explore some of the most mysterious and beautiful parts of the natural world. But it is also inherently dangerous, and safety must always come first. Circumstances will vary in each cave and on every expedition, but the guiding principle should always be to prioritize safety above all else. Lee's story is a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong, even for experienced cavers. It's also a testament to the importance of teamwork, preparation, and quick thinking in responding to emergencies. Thankfully, Lee's injuries were not as severe as they could have been, and the group's ability to organize a rescue saved him from further harm. For anyone who dreams of exploring wild caves, let this story serve as a cautionary tale. Proper equipment, good judgment, and respect for safety protocols are not optional. They are essential for ensuring that every caving adventure ends with everyone returning safely to the surface. A network of caves sprawls beneath the tallest mountain in Spain. The volcanic Mount Teide formed hollow lava tubes, and humans have dug their own caves to study these phenomena. In spring of 2007, a group of 30 scientists and nature lovers ventured into one of the many labyrinths beneath Mount Teide. After a daring rescue, many would live to tell the tale, but some would perish. This is the tragic rescue in Baranco de los Cochenos. The caves below Mount Teide. The caves on the island of Tenerife are different from normal caves. Many of these caves are volcanic caves or man-made caves created to study volcanic activity on the largest island of the Canary Islands. Tenerife is a volcanic island formed by a series of eruptions that caused lava to build layers of rock and metal. Over the last 20 million years, these layers gradually rose to a mountain peak, forming Mount Teide. One of these massive eruptions fused 3 of the Canary Islands, each with their own mountain ranges and volcanoes. In the aftermath, a crater was left in the center of the new island. This extinct volcano would become the base of the gargantuan Mount Teide. Tenerife is centered around the ominous Mount Teide, with its summit towering 12,188 feet above ground, or 24,600 feet above sea level, making it the tallest point in Spain and the 3rd tallest volcano on Earth. The crater of Mount Teide is 11 miles long, and beneath the volcano lies a sprawling network of lava tubes, cavernous tunnels formed by underground magma and above-ground lava flows. Baranco de los Cochenos is a cave partially dug by humans over the past few centuries, mixing the lava tube structure with man-made tunnels bored with machines and blasts of dynamite. These tunnels were used to study the lava tubes and volcanic activity, and to mine precious minerals. Some passages may connect to naturally formed lava tubes and other cave structures, creating a maze of tunnels underground. These tubes of rock lack the traditional speleoforms of regular caves, so they're less attractive to hikers and novice cavers. And they also lack the normal thrills that splunkers crave. There's less water, less vertical sections, few tight crevices, and less uncharted territory to explore. But scientists have their own reasons for studying these caves, and lava tubes come with their own dangers that even experienced cavers might not be prepared for. Tenerife was also home to the worst flight accident in history, the Tenerife airport disaster. Back in 1977, a violent group of advocates wanted independence from Spain, so they set off a bomb at an airport. This caused chaos at other airports, including the Tenerife airport, which had to accept landings that were originally scheduled for different airports. On March 27th, the runways were overloaded, causing 2 Boeing 747 jumbo jets to smash into one another, killing 583 passengers. 40 years later, a group of would-be cavers, scientists, and nature enthusiasts would become the subjects of yet another notorious disaster on Tenerife. Only this time, the tragedy would be below ground. Brilliance and carelessness, the Tenerife cave disaster. Back in 2007, two groups joined forces to explore the cave of Baranco de los Cochenos on Tenerife Island. The Canaries Astrophysics Institute was one of the groups exploring the cave. The island's rich volcanic activity and high elevation have attracted scientists from all over the globe. This institute is a state-of-the-art scientific research facility. The students and scientists there build sophisticated imaging devices like telescopes and cameras used for satellite missions. They research the solar system and how galaxies form. They also manage the Teide Observatory, which was built at high altitude to get closer to the stars without interference from city lights and the atmosphere. Now, if all of that wasn't impressive enough, one of the greatest minds in human history, the late Stephen Hawking, was an honorary professor at the Canaries Astrophysics Institute. So, why did these brilliant scientists turn their attention away from the stars to look down into the depths below our feet? This first group of roughly 15 people wanted to study the lava tubes beneath Mount Teide because these cave formations are also found on the Moon and on Mars. By exploring these caves, scientists can test robots that might one day search for life in Martian volcanic caves. The second half of the journey into Baranco de los Cochenos was a group from the Tenerife Friends of Nature Association. Now, you'd expect scientists who don't normally study caves to team up with caving groups, but the Friends of Nature are just charity advocates for preservation efforts on the island. A couple members of the nature group said they had ventured into the cave before, but they were no splunkers. Both groups had no real guide and no caving experience, so if their journey turned deadly, they'd have almost no hope of survival. The joint expedition of roughly 30 people made mistake after mistake. The day of the cave exploration came, and the dry, arid climate of Tenerife had tricked the scientists and nature lovers into a false sense of security. They dressed in basic tracksuits and other athletic gear, skipping the wetsuits, sturdy overalls, watertight boots, and other insulating gear to protect them from mud, scrapes, slips, and the chill of the deep. Some might have thought that the magma from Mount Teide would keep them warm as they ventured further into the ground. Now, deeper into the ground, molten rock is still slithering through the earth, waiting for enough pressure to build when it can finally sunder the rock apart in a cataclysmic eruption. But the dried lava tubes were formed well above this molten stream. Millions of years of rock layers separated the would-be cavers from the heat of the magma. The lava tubes retained no heat and no comfort from the elements. Spirits were high as the group trekked into Baranco de los Cochenos. The group was blissfully unaware of the dangers that lie ahead. There were almost no ropes, no extra food supplies, blankets, or other safety gear amongst the huge team of 30 cavers. Many of them even lacked light sources. These tragic mistakes didn't bother them at first, but as they trekked further inward, things slowly started to go wrong. Lava tubes are rocky, but they can also contain slippery, smooth metal. Over time, as the lava receded, the temperatures cooled, leaving sheets of mist and water that built up on the lava tube's metallic and rocky floor, making it slippery. The rough, uneven terrain of regular caves can be hazardous, but it also provides footholds and handholds for good grip. But they were slipping on the smooth ground. The walls of the cave were almost perfectly round, with nothing to grip onto if someone fell, and they had no walking sticks or other tools for balance. These smooth pathways were inviting. It'll be an easy walk, they thought, but they were fatiguing earlier than expected, which forced them to take breaks and extend the trip. To make matters worse, all the tubes and tunnels all started to look the same. There aren't many discernible features in Baranco de los Cochenos. There were no inspiring stalactites, no cracks, no rivers, no cliffs, just a true labyrinth of stone and metal. The team continued onward as their energy and optimism faded into concern and frustration. At one point, one of the explorers, Narciso H., slipped and fell. The groups in the front didn't even notice.
but he dusted himself off and continued walking. As they trudged on, Narciso started breathing heavy and he got a headache. Not wanting to worry the team more after his embarrassing fall, he kept it to himself. But soon, more people started to breathe heavier and faster. Some of the scientists led sedentary lifestyles, but many of the nature group were fit and fully capable of exploring this easy walkway. Except they also started breathing heavy. They each started to get headaches. They passed them off with excuses like maybe they didn't get enough food, maybe it was the low light. But soon, these headaches became unbearable, forcing more breaks as people paused to clutch their heads. Then, some members noticed an acidic taste in their mouths. Voices of concern started to rise from members of the party in short, gasping sentences. Their vision was blurring, their heads spinning with vertigo. Narciso H. leaned on the smooth walls of the cave, trying to catch his balance, but his legs gave way underneath him. Stars overtook his vision, different from the ones he gazed at with his state-of-the-art telescopes. These ones were caused by lack of oxygen to his brain. Starved of its fuel, his conscious brain shut off. His head bounced off the cavern wall, causing his bald flesh to bleed as he fell to the cavern floor. Others collapsed where they stood. Still more fell to their hands and knees as their heads bobbed, throbbing with pain and confusion. Some of the members tried to drag people in the opposite direction, but the physical exertion made them breathe deeper. Only one of the 30 explorers was still standing near the back of the group. He had fallen behind to check out strange layers of stone along a portion of the wall. His headlamp showed a ghastly sight as he rejoined his friends and colleagues. All of them were lying on the ground unconscious. He didn't know if they were alive or dead, but he turned and half ran toward the entrance cave, being careful not to slip and fall. The final mistake and a miraculous rescue. Deep below Mount Teta, the explorers started waking up. They were amazed they were alive, but they couldn't celebrate their luck. They were now coughing as their raspy voices echoed through the tunnels. They checked their watches. They had been passed out on the cave floor for over 2 hours. They were still dizzy, and hypothermia had begun to settle into their bones while they were unconscious. They shivered, gnashing their teeth in the biting chill of Baranco de los Cochenos cavern. Panicked, they started hypothesizing about what had happened. The obvious answer was gas from the magma beneath the cave. If it was volcanic gas, then they had no idea when more could seep through the rock and suffocate them again. However, some of the explorers weren't convinced of the danger. They dubbed it a freak accident. They had been down here before, and no problems like this ever happened. Mount Teta wasn't very active, so it was very unlikely that another gas leak could happen. It would require molten rock to interact with other chemicals to burn. Even if chemicals were burning right now, it would require large amounts to build up enough pressure to overcome the atmospheric pressure of the cave, which gets stronger the deeper you go. It would probably take days, weeks, or even years for enough pressure to build before another gas leak fumigated Baranco de los Cochenos. Or so they thought. 6 members of the group agreed to push onward, even as their heads pounded in pain. But the rest weren't going to risk it. They started walking to the exits. They were already feeling the pressure of a life and death situation, reinvigorated to get out as soon as possible. The only question was, which way is out? The chaos of the situation had disoriented them. When they awoke, they weren't sure which way was forward and which way was back. Panic erupted through the ranks. It was every person for themselves. Around this time, the only scientist who didn't pass out fell on his face as he stumbled out through the exit of Baranco de los Cochenos. Eventually, he shuffled further out and called for help. The Spanish Mountain Rescue and Intervention Groups, or GRIME, sent their special unit over to the scene. But they were a good distance away. Local fire squads and other first responders got there in no time. Just as they arrived, more people started pouring out of the cave. They thought it was a miracle. There were so many people here, they must have all made it out. But slowly they realized half the group was still missing. The rescue crews knew that the man-made portion of the cave ended in a dead end. If the others reached that portion, they could wait for rescue or turn around. The rescuers knew where to find them as long as they didn't wander down any side passages or any new connection points. They got to work situating large fans at the cave's entrance to vent any fumes out of the cave. Some of these industrial-sized rescue fans are capable of clearing the air in subway sewers, so they could surely handle the cave. Rescuers suited up with respirators and gas masks to filter the air, allowing them safe passage into the cave. Since the cave didn't have the typical hazards, rescuers brought the bare minimum equipment. Some stretchers that could be pulled along the ground, attached to ropes or carried, and some rope and carabiners to attach themselves to the skids. There shouldn't be any tough cave formations to haul the cavers through. It should be in and out, unless any of them sustained physical trauma. The rescue team walked silently into the depths of Baranco de los Cochenos. After less than an hour, the rescuers found the first group and slowly brought them out one at a time. Of those who made it out, 6 foreign scientists and members of the nature crew were immediately loaded onto helicopters and airlifted to a nearby hospital. Meanwhile, half of the crew ventured deeper within. They heard no sound as they crept inward. They saw no lights. No one knew it at the time, but this group of scientists and explorers weren't exposed to deadly gases released by magma from deep below. The amateur cavers were suffocating. There were too many people in the constricted tunnels of Baranco de los Cochenos, and they were simply running out of air. As they inhaled all the remaining oxygen-rich air, they exhaled carbon dioxide, a colorless, odorless gas that causes all the symptoms they were experiencing earlier. Normal CO2 levels are around 0.03%, but the amount in caves can easily rise above that baseline. Caves with 1% CO2 or more are dubbed foul air caves, and a concentration of 10% or more could instantly stop human lungs from functioning. Earlier in the day, the CO2 levels were just high enough to cause everyone to pass out. But as they passed out, their breathing slowed down, allowing the CO2 levels to drop. If they had brought an experienced caver with them, they could have stood a chance. Cavers developed the naked flame test for this exact situation. You just light a flame and walk forward to test the air. For decades, cavers thought high CO2 atmospheres would cause flames to burn out, and that's true. But it turns out that a flame will burn out in any low oxygen environment, including those tainted by other toxins. They were brilliant scientists, but they knew about the gas of the stars, not about the air inside caves. A group of 6 ambitious cavers found the end of the tunnel. They thought it would be good to rest. There was no obvious signs of additional gas leak, but once again, their logic failed them. There was already low oxygen in the area, and each shallow breath they took exhaled more of the same poisonous carbon dioxide into the air. The fresh air from beyond this pocket couldn't reach them. All the atmospheric pressure concentrated the air into this very spot. As they stood there at the cave's end, the CO2 levels rose once more, and each of them collapsed again. Only this time, they didn't wake up. Rescuers squeezed through the narrowing tunnels leading to the dead end and found them. 1 Italian man studying at the Astrophysics Institute and 5 other Spanish people, all dead. Now, as far as cave deaths go, they died peacefully rather than the violent, agonizing, and panic deaths that normally claim the lives of splunkers.